One time we were already 20 minutes late for something, and I realized I forgot an order of donuts for someone that were luckily old-fashioned. So I allowed myself 0.5 seconds to freak out, and then I mixed up a batch and fried it and decorated it. I say if you clocked it in under 15 minutes. It felt like one of those things that only a nervous panic could ever have me accomplish that ever again. I couldn't do it. Like if someone was like, for $1 million, can you make donuts in 15 minutes? They'd be like, oh my God. Hello and welcome to an episode of Liz Bakes For You. I'm Liz and today I am making old-fashioned donuts. You may know that I'm pretty good at donuts, and you may also know that this is my recipe. Now, what sets these apart from other old-fashioned donuts? Probably only one thing, and it's the fact that I slice them and I fill them with cream cheese buttercream. But there's a very important detail because it makes these so much better than just a plain old-fashioned. I'm actually super excited to show you guys this because I know that it goes well because I'm actually good at donuts. And after soufflé pancakes and water pie, really think we're gonna hit it out of the park this week. So let's get started. Let's talk about ingredients. Pretty simple. What we're making here will probably seem very similar to a muffin or, yeah, a muffin recipe. What you're gonna get is something pretty thick, so it's gonna be thicker than a muffin. I say that mostly because if you ever make a cake, you see it's very, usually more of a runny batter. A muffin's gonna be a denser batter, and then you're gonna get all the way to a biscuit. Okay, on a scale of biscuit to cake, we're making something that's in between biscuit and muffin when it comes to old-fashioned donut. One thing I will note, this is my birthday cake old-fashioned recipe. We're going to slice it and we're going to fill it. And the donut itself will have rainbow sprinkles in it because it's a birthday donut. Gosh darn it. And one thing you will notice about the sprinkles is when you roll out the donuts, all of these sprinkles will have mostly disintegrated and become just little colored pockets all in the dough. And by the time you're done, they won't really look like sprinkles very much anymore. It'll just be weirdly colorful. What is an old-fashioned donut? Simply put, it's a style of cake donut. So we're going to be using baking agents. This is baking powder and baking soda and salt, just because I only have so many tiny bowls in this house. And we're using that, we're not using yeast. So old-fashioned. Now another thing that makes an old-fashioned is some sort of acidic liquid going into it. You can do a sour cream old-fashioned, you can do a buttermilk old-fashioned. In fact, this recipe, if you only have sour cream or if you have buttermilk, it'll work interchangeably. You're just gonna probably add a little more sour cream than you would buttermilk because of the consistency of sour cream. We are making a buttermilk vanilla old-fashioned, and we are adding sprinkles, and I'm going to show you how I create my Milk Bar themed filled birthday cake old-fashioned. What else is going in here? Obviously flour. An all-purpose is great. I'm using King Arthur. I've said it before, I like King Arthur, okay? Plain sugar. This is just standard granulated white sugar. If you want to use an alternative sugar, if you want to use a coconut sugar, if you want to use like a refined cane juice, go for it. Switch it out 1-to-1. If you're looking to use some sort of liquid sweetener like an agave or a maple syrup, I have no idea how that will work, and you will definitely need to change this entire recipe into something that it isn't at all. Go for it. Some recipes ask for brown sugar. That's another sugar note. They'll be like, half brown sugar, half white sugar. And then you're like, cool, now I gotta get 2 sugars out. I gotta measure both these out. The brown sugar one is gonna get this cup all gross, and I'm not gonna remember to scoop the regular sugar first. I'm gonna scoop the brown sugar first, and then the thing's gonna be all gross, and you're gonna have to clean it. You're gonna have to dry it really well because the sugar is gonna stick to it if you have any water left on it. And I did that just enough times where I was like, you know what, screw this, I'm just putting white sugar in it, and the result is identical to the one with brown sugar. We're gonna be using 1 egg. Now, I know for a fact that you can swap this out with a flax egg. Works fine. So if for some reason you have some sort of problem with an egg, you can get around that. A little bit of vanilla extract, buttermilk we already went over, and then the last thing is melted butter. If you want to make a very easy donut and you want to fry it and you want to impress your friends immediately, make an old-fashioned donut. When I first started and I tried to make raised donuts and all of them came out like trash, I reverted back to old-fashions because they came out really well. And all of the things I'm going to show you in this video will make you even more likely to be successful with them. So today we're going to mix all this up, and tomorrow we're going to roll them out and fry them. I love leaving it in the fridge overnight to cool. Makes it easier to roll out, gives you a more consistent donut at the end, and it also helps just in general with allowing the baking agent to react a little bit before you put it in that fryer so you don't get that Oreo donut explosion situation happening. Let's mix some donut dough up. I gotta get my mixer. Now, mixing this dough, very simple. Rolling them out, frying them. Honestly, all individual steps are very simple. You just have to be able to like tuck in for like mixing this the day before, making the donuts the next day. There are a lot of steps. All of them are easy, all of them are doable. You can do this. Very first thing, measure out your flour, measure out your sugar, measure out your baking agents and your salt. So I'm gonna add all this in here, which was dumb because I just need it in this bowl. So you're gonna add it in one bowl and then you're gonna pour it in another bowl. This is one of those trade secrets. If you have a stand mixer, definitely use it. It will make your life easier. If you don't have a stand mixer, you can still make this recipe. Follow all the same steps, but just understand that you're gonna have a slightly annoying moment where you're mixing this by hand. Everything else will be the same. So our wet ingredients, we're gonna add our egg here, our vanilla extract, and our buttermilk. All of these are going in at once. This is bothering me. There are a lot of cooking shows that drive me nuts where they're like, and then you just leave half of what you made in this bowl and it's done. And I don't really like that. So I want to use all this. I have this dough slightly mixed, and then I'm going to turn the mixer on low and slowly stream the butter in as it's mixing. Therefore, if it is seizing up, hopefully it's broken up enough where it's not gonna cause any major issues. You're not gonna have one big clump of seized up butter in there. This is a half stick of butter. 2 ounces, 4 tablespoons, 56 grams. She's back. You just want all this to get mixed up evenly. So you don't want to mix it for a ton of time. It's nothing like a yeasted dough. You don't want to like, you want the gluten to be, you know, activated, but you don't need it to be like, whatever activated. I don't know how to finish that sentence. Okay. This is where I would stop. Now you're thinking to yourself, you have a whole bowl of sprinkles over there. What's happening with those? I'm gonna pour half of those in. Oops. Give that a little mix. What do the sprinkles do? Nothing. They're just fun. Sprinkles have never done anything in their lives. So we can all sleep soundly tonight with our sprinkly dough in our fridge. So, sprinkle dough, vanilla, old-fashioned, sprinkle, birthday cake, slice, milk bar, old-fashioned, donuts. We're one step on the way there. So you'll notice that this is, I mean, it sticks, it's a little sticky, but I actually am just gonna plop it out so you can see it. Everybody likes a good plop, right? So this is a dough, and that is the main difference between a cake donut and an old-fashioned donut. And while I will never judge you for saying, give me that cake donut when it's an old-fashioned donut, similar to how I won't judge you when you say macaroon instead of macaron, I will also be judging you for saying the wrong thing because it's wrong. Tomorrow, I'm gonna throw some flour down and I'm gonna roll this out and I'm gonna punch out donuts. I don't need some special contraption to plop these donuts down into the oil, which is what you need when you're making cake donuts. I love a cake donut, okay? I do discriminate when it comes to donuts, and my very favorite is probably a chocolate old-fashioned, followed closely by a freshly fried yeasted raised donut with plain vanilla glaze. So a cake donut is somewhere in the top 10, but probably towards the back. Now that we have this all made, let's get this in something to put it in the fridge overnight. I'm gonna grab a little Cambro. You're gonna grab me a little Cambro. They're up there. We're back with every baking / food professional's preferred Cambro, the circular Cambro. This is gonna be the one you use for everything you care about. If you have some trash you wanna put away, you can grab a square Cambro. This is particularly good for anything that's got a higher moisture content because it doesn't leak everywhere like a square Cambro. This needs to go in the fridge overnight, or if you're trying to make them the same day, I say about 4 hours. Will you put the superior Cambro in the fridge for me? We have a square Cambro stand filming this video right now, but he doesn't have the microphone. It is day 2. We are making old-fashioned donuts. This is the dough. It's been sitting in the fridge overnight, so she's nice and chilly. We talked about this yesterday. Prepare yourself. These sprinkles are going to disintegrate. We're gonna roll these out. Now, I have another donut video on here where I believe I go a little bit more in depth with the rolling process. It is a little different for old-fashioned simply because it's a different type of dough, but the gist will be here, and if you want more information on other donuts, how to roll them out, definitely check out that other video. So, this dough, you can kind of already see the sprinkles are disintegrating a bit. So, we're gonna push it out from us, bring it back over itself, put a little more flour down, rotate this 90 degrees, push it back over itself. You'll notice you have these kind of crackly areas. And those are fine, just keep an eye on them when you're rolling it out. You want this to be rolled out pretty smooth. So now we're gonna bring more flour to the party. Now, usually I would use a rolling pin, mostly because I'm generally rolling out way more of this than like one batch, which makes about 10 donuts. You can see that crack there. But today I'm not rolling out many donuts, and also I didn't grab it before I started filming this. So I'm just gonna mush this out with my hand. Okay, I lied, you should get a rolling pin. This is really annoying. What I wanna be sure of is that these are relatively thick because we're gonna be slicing them, but not so thick that they won't cook. But with this thickness, I'd say I'm probably only gonna get about 8 donuts out of this. So if you want to get more donuts out of it, you can roll it thinner. That's allowed. That was always allowed. Now, if you have any interest in buying these specific tools, which are these are my ideal tools, you can go to the blog post associated with this video, and everything is linked there for you.
And in the description?
No, not in the description. The blog post is linked in the description. Maybe it will be. Maybe season 2 will be when I link all that stuff in there.
Cool.
Will it? You want to do my affiliate links inside YouTube? I didn't even want to do them on my website. One last thing to keep in mind, one of these cracks, you can kind of see it here, has created like a little area on the donut. The only thing to keep in mind with that is that area is going to get more oil saturated than the rest. It might get a little crunchier, which is a favorite of some people. And you can kind of see it on the other ones. There's some here, some there. They shouldn't create big issues because for the most part, we don't have ginormous cracks going on. We're going to be scoring these donuts before they go in the fryer to control how they expand. Some recipes will have you throw old fashions in a fryer without scoring them, and it allows them to expand however they want to. However, I have found that first of all, you can't control what direction they're gonna go in. Sometimes they explode literally one area and you have like this big bubble on one side and the rest of it becomes constrained and it doesn't cook properly. And I personally have been caught out too many times trying to make an old-fashioned donut that didn't expand at all in the oil, and that looks dumb and it doesn't taste the way that I want it to. So I decided to hack the system and just score them before they go in. So we have these scraps here and we can definitely roll these out again. Keep in mind, more color is gonna start going everywhere. My hands are funfettied, but that's okay. So we're just gonna bring this back together into a rough ball, which is a process of kind of squishing and flipping it over itself. The old squish and flick. This starts to get kind of a fun tie-dye effect. Do you wanna come look at it? It's neat, right? At first I was annoyed because I didn't know the sprinkles were going to disintegrate like this. But I've come to like it, which is how a lot of things happen. At first I hated it and now I don't. One other note is I like to get as close to the edge as possible, but still trim off the edge all around, because you want that cut edge all around the donut. It helps with the expansion as well. We are all done rolling out these donuts and we're ready to start frying them. However, we need to get the oil hot. Full disclosure, we didn't hit record on one of the cameras. I also changed because I was frustrated and I was uncomfortable and I was hot. So I put on frying clothes, which is a t-shirt that's probably 10 years old and some Nike shorts that are also about 10 years old. The point is I'm comfy and I'm ready to fry. This dough was made 5 minutes ago. We're gonna see what happens. I am gonna score this like I would. This is what I was talking about previously. You're gonna cut it just to control which way these guys expand. And these, just pull them a little bit out and then pop them in. And then as soon as they come up, you wanna make sure these scores are working and then you flip them. So old fashions have 2 flips instead of just 1. They rise to the top, then you flip them over and you cook them for about 90 seconds on one side and then you cook them for about 75 on the other. So why do we do that with old fashions? Why do we fry them so weird? Why don't we just flip them one time? Why do we make it confusing? Mostly so they cook all the way through, because these are a denser donut than your yeast raised donuts. And although some people like a gooey interior of a lot of different things, you don't want that here because technically not correct. And technically correct is the best kind of correct. It sounds confusing. It is a little annoying when you're standing here doing it, but everything will be very clear in the instructions, which are linked in the description. Ow, got me. Be careful, the oil is hot. Also, the sprinkles are kind of exploding out of the donuts a bit because they didn't have time to disintegrate. Hilariously, like I was like, don't worry, they're disintegrating. Look at them disintegrating. These are fresh Sprinkies, so they didn't have time to disintegrate. Okay, we're gonna flip these over. Ugh, beautiful. There was a dude that was definitely hitting on me who told me I should fry in cast iron. The dates didn't go very far. The cast iron has lasted for years. About 80 seconds, so these should be done. Keep in mind, these are really hot, so they're gonna keep cooking just a little bit on the inside after you pull them out. But if you take a look at where the scores are, you can see how we controlled the way that these expanded. Lid on, donuts done. Now it's time to make some crumbles for the tops of these, and by the time we're done with those, by the time we're done with the crumbles, the donuts will be cool, which will be perfect because then we can glaze them, slice them, dip them, decorate them. We are ready to make these birthday cake crumbles. Now, I wanted to let you guys know, our Lord and Savior, Christina Tosi of Milk Bar, has 2 cookbooks. This is my preferred one if you're gonna start with one. I'll have that link below if you wanna check it out. The recipe is in that book. Now, what is in these crumbles? There's cake flour, brown sugar, baking powder, salt, and sprinkles. oil and then vanilla extract. And as you know, she usually uses imitation because it has that like old school flavor. I've already put my flour, my baking soda, my salt, my sprinkles, and my brown sugar in here because we only have so many bowls in this house. I have my oil here. And the last thing I'm gonna say is that these taste a lot like those cookies that you get, like the break and bake. In my day, you had to slice them, and then they started making them pre-sliced for you, which was really nice. Because when you had to slice them yourself, you'd like mess up the pumpkins, you know, if you cut it the wrong way, they get like smooshed. Great start. I'm just gonna mix this first, just to make sure all my dry stuff's kind of mildly incorporated. I would say my favorite outside of donut use of these, whoopsies, is ice cream. Maybe like a strawberry milk ice cream with a birthday cake crumble inside. Okay, 25 grams of vanilla. These could also be ground up and made into like a crust for a cheesecake. Ooh.
Pretty good.
The graham crumbles are my second, maybe top. The graham crumbles in this book are probably my favorite. These are maybe tied for favorite. All right, oil. The best part about these crumbles though, unlike the rest of the crumbles in the book, naturally vegan. Don't have to do anything to make them vegan. Okay. You'll notice this is pretty dry, which is what you want. Another note on this recipe is I made it this time with cake flour. I've made it literally every other time with regular flour, all purpose, because I don't like to have cake flour on hand because I don't use it a ton. But I had cake flour, so I decided to try it out. It might create a more delicate crumb than it normally does. I don't think it's gonna make a big difference. So once you have this all done, kind of got this situation, a little wetter than I want it to be, but anyway, what you want to do is make these into crumbles. You want to crumble them. Crumble the crumbles. Okay, this is crumbly enough. 20 minutes in the oven at 300. Mix them halfway through. And then once they're out, we'll probably crush them a little bit more. And in the meantime, let's get to other donut stuff, because there are other steps, obviously. There can't be more than 10 more to do. It is time to decorate these donuts. These are fully cooled. Our crumbs, take a nice look at these, are perfect. We have a glaze made over here. Now this is a thin vanilla glaze, so you're gonna see it's gonna be very runny, which is what we want for better coverage. And then the last thing is a cream cheese buttercream, which is gonna be our filling. Now, the theory behind these donuts, they are inspired by a milk bar cake. So a milk bar cake, if you don't know, is layered. I mean, all cakes are layered, generally. Well, not all cakes, but layer cakes are layered. So they usually do a cake, a soak, a frosting, a crumble, a cake, a soak, a frosting, a crumble. To take that and to apply it to donuts, we're going to be slicing these so that we have donut, filling, crumble, donut, glaze, crumble. Basically, I want to incorporate getting those layers and also getting the variety of textures that you get from those layers, but within a donut instead of within a cake. So where to start? The first place we're gonna start is actually with dipping the donuts into our glaze and then into our crumb. We wanna dip all of these first, put the crumbs on all of them first, and then we're gonna come over to our handy dandy bread knife and slice them. We do that first because it's really hard to dip a donut when it's already cut in half. So we have to dip it beforehand just to make it easier on ourselves. And the other thing is, once you dip them in these crumbs, even though you're gonna manhandle it a bit when you're slicing it, it won't affect the look of the donut very much because these crumbs are kind of like a protective layer. So let's get dipping. Thin vanilla glaze. All right. So there's the glaze for you. And then just gonna sink it into that. Now, your coverage on this might not be great. Keep in mind we're gonna be putting crumbs in the center of the donut too. So if you're not getting full coverage on the top, that's okay. I think what I would traditionally do, since this glaze is really thin and it's not gonna set super fast, is I'm gonna do a little, ooh, that guy's a crumbly guy. I'm gonna dip a couple of these in this glaze, let it kind of run down the donut a bit. Let me drip onto this guy because he's got a blank spot. And then I'll take it over here to these crumbs. I ate a lot of these crumbs as we were waiting to make these to decorate. So although we started with way too many, it appears we might not have enough. We'll see. Now that we have these glazed and dipped, it's time to slice them in half. Keep in mind you want to keep these tops and these bottoms together because they're not all exactly the same size. This is already sticky, so if your hands are gross from dipping the donuts, might as well just leave them. Now, cutting technique. You could really just go for it, go straight across. Chances are you're gonna go up or down a little bit as you're going across. So I like to start and just rotate the donut and do a little slicey into every section of it until I find my way back around. And then I just do a nice little easy does it all the way across. And then we get a pretty even cut. Also helps you from not cutting your hand. So if you avoided burning yourself, now we avoid cutting ourselves. So I'm just gonna keep rolling with it. This is where we do our filling. This is a disposable piping bag. I love them and I use them a ton because it's way easier to throw these away. Technically they're recyclable, but than to clean out a piping bag every day. You can just use a regular piping bag. The fun part about this is you just cut off the end wherever you want it to. If you're trying to put a piping tip into this, just use a big circular piping tip. I'd say you could just probably use your bag as is because you don't care what the filling looks like. You're just gonna do, I told you I'd make you one that wasn't filled. So now this is where we're gonna come in and do some more crumbles. It's now time to place the tops back on. So just give it a little tiny squish. And like I said, old fashions are what I would consider, is that the way? That was the way. Old fashions are what I would consider easy mode as far as donuts go. If you want to start with a type of donut and get better at making donuts, the best place to start is going to be with an old-fashioned donut. They're quicker in general than a raised donut, and there's kind of just less to mess up when you're not working with yeast. And also, if you do something like this with them and take these over to, like, I don't know, you're like, oh, a birthday, why don't I make these birthday cake donuts for my friend instead of a cake? If you show up with these like crazy filled contraptions and your friends don't know that although it was a lot of steps, all of them were very easy, like they're gonna be very impressed. I mean, look at this.
Quit smacking in the back.
If you hear someone aggressively eating the goop that was underneath all the trays when we were decorating in the background, that's my mom. It's time to wrap up with these old-fashioned filled donuts. I have my decorated ones here on my mostly clean table. I'm gonna grab one of these. Is that the one I wanna? All right. I'm gonna slice one in half, give you guys a cross-section view of this. Now keep in mind, this guy's fresh, and he might not be as set up and cute inside as ideally he would be. But we did wait for the donut to cool, so it shouldn't be a melty mess. Okay, here you go. The best part about this donut is old fashions are already sweeter than a raised donut. So you might as well just like go all in and also fill it with buttercream. If you don't like a sweet donut, I don't know why you're eating donuts, but definitely don't eat this one.
We'll do pizza donuts for those people.
Ooh, I should do pizza donuts. Okay. Ooh, it's so good about it. really glad I took that dress off. Thank you guys for joining me today to make old-fashioned donuts. This is probably one of my very favorite recipes, especially because it's filled with cream cheese buttercream. I hope that you either try this one, you try a variation on this one, or at the very least you enjoyed watching me make them. And if you did, be sure to like this video. Definitely subscribe to my channel as we're gonna be doing way more donut content. And I hope to see you guys next week for our season 2 finale. I have inhaled a lot of powdered sugar in my life, which who knows what that does too. Try and ask a doctor that question, you get a really weird answer. Or a really weird look.